guys, welcome back to another video for Booktober. And in case you're new and you don't know what Booktober is, or you don't know why I'm talking about it, Booktober is this thing that I'm doing to myself, where I basically read a book for every day of October until this month ends, this very long month that has 31 days. Until this long month ends, I will be reading a book for each day. And the books that I'm reading are more October based. They're more like spooky, mystery, thrillers, dark academia books, so befitting of the month of October. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And for today's Booktober video, I am going to be talking about Agatha Christie again, because I've actually done a video on one of her books before. And the book that I'm going to be doing from Agatha Christie this time around is, according to the discourse on Goodreads, apparently contested, very much controversial when it comes to like calling it a mystery. It's called And Then There Were None. And in case you have never heard of this book or you don't know what it's about, And Then There Were None is more like a standalone book from Agatha Christie, and it's about these 10 people who are invited to an island. Like, they don't have any relation with each other. They don't know who the other is. There is no connection. They're just these 10 random strangers that get invited to an island, and they're told that it's for, like, you know, rest and relaxation purposes, that like this person knows them, etc. And then when they get there, they realize that like there's somebody actually hunting them down on the island, and like one by one they're trying to kill them off, based on this very problematic rhyme. Not nursery rhyme. I don't think it should be a nursery rhyme, right? I don't think it is. But it's like a very problematic Mother Goose styled song, I guess. It's based off of that nursery rhyme, I guess. I'll just use nursery rhyme as in reference to this, but it's based off of that. And they're all getting killed off one by one based off of the way that the rhyme goes and the way that the actual like 10 people in that rhyme were killed off. Well, not exactly killed off, but like they just didn't, you know, like it's one of those counting backwards songs where it's like 10 I don't know, 10 horses, and then like 9 horses, and then 8 or 7 or 6 or something like that. It's like that ants go marching one by one song, you know, like the ants go marching one by one, hurrah, hurrah, all that. It's like similar to that song in the way that like people sing it to help kids count. So it's that, but the person who is hunting these 10 people down are kind of taking the things said in the rhyme very literally and trying to replicate and mimic that. Aside from the very, I don't know, I would not use that rhyme, me personally. No, yikes. The story, I guess, the mystery of the whole thing itself is very much not a mystery, and I'm gonna say why it didn't really feel like a mystery, but rather like more of a countdown. Everything in the novel, rather than feeling like you could solve this mystery or you could solve this case and you could stop whoever's after you, it all felt more inevitable, and like there was no way of you finding out who did it or anything like that. There was no way of you actually realizing like what the big mystery reveal was until like it was revealed later. And I don't even know, in the version that I read, it said that it was revealed from like a glass bottle thrown into the ocean with like the killer's confession in it. But I don't know if that was added later when nobody could guess who the killer was. And Agatha Christie was just like, okay guys, here you go, here's like an extra, a little bonus epilogue, or if that was like the case already in the book. Either way, it really did not feel like a mystery. It says And I think like people have their qualms about that, the fact that they went into it with expectations thinking that they were reading a mystery about like who's killing off these 10 people one by one on an island isolated from society. And it's like, yeah, that's what I thought too. And then as I read it, I slowly understood that this was more of those atmospheric, contemplative, almost like surrealist type of settings where it's like you're alone on an island and you don't know where this mystery killer is. You don't know what this person has set up. You just know that if you go alone, you end up dying. And so this one person went alone with this other person, but it's like, did you push him off the cliff? Did you do that? Or was it the killer? How do I know you're not telling the truth? How do I know you're not telling a lie? And it's just one of those things where it was more like feeding off of paranoia, feeding off of the mind's imagination, rather than actually developing any clues or whodunit type of mysteries or anything like that. It really isn't a whodunit, because it's like, either way, even if you were to like in your wildest dreams speculate who did it and come up with like a very film theory, game theory level of explanation for how this person ended up doing it. Even then, everybody dies at the end. And that's a spoiler, I guess, but like the killer wins at the end. There is no way that the mystery was solved. There was no way that anybody could have escaped, because again, they're on an island, and again, they didn't know who the killer was the entire time. They were just chasing after each other and like running around like chickens that have lost their heads. So in the end, it's just one of those like moral corruption type of stories where it's like very much like, it almost feels like a ghost story because of the way that these 10 people were targeted because of their past or because of something they did, and the way that that's haunting them now, the way that like also the killer is watching over them feels like an omniscient specter because of the way that nobody knows where the killer is coming from. Nobody knows who the killer is. Nobody knows what was embedded, what is a trap in this manor, this big giant island that's more of a giant prison. Nobody knows where any of these attacks are coming from. They just know that whenever they turn around and see the 10 figurines on the table, every time someone passes away, one of them gets removed. Who keeps removing them? Who keeps doing this? It's only the 10 of them here. There's no other signs of life. There's no other signs of anybody around. Not even a maid, not even a butler. So who is it? Unless it's one of us. And then they start ending up like very much like paranoid. They have all these accusations against each other. They don't know how to trust one another, but they don't want to go out alone and stuff like that. So it's, I guess like, it's like Scream. I guess it's kind of like that. Like I mean, like not recently, but like a while back I watched Scream 6, even though I've never actually watched the other movies in the franchise. I know some people are crying from that, but I have never actually watched any Scream movies beforehand. So Scream 6 was like the first movie that I watched, and it was interesting because the entire time, everybody's like, who is the killer? Who is Ghostface? Is it one of us? Is it one of us in the friend group? Etc., etc. And like, that's the way that, and then there were none kind of played off of human suspicion, and also the possibility of evil in everyone, the possibility of desperation, self-preservation, pushing you to do something unimaginable. And especially in an island where there is no civilization, where there is nothing but you and you alone, where you're alone in your thoughts and you're in your head oftentimes. And it's just one of those things where as I read more of it, I realized that this isn't a mystery, is it? Like, guys, I don't think this is meant to be solved. I think we're just meant to like enjoy the fact that this is like a bit of a psychological horror, if I'm honest. Maybe psychological thriller, but it's like very psychological. Yeah, so some people were saying like this was a bad book from Agatha Christie, etc., etc. They were like, this kind of flopped, and I'm like, I see if what you're saying if you actually suspected it to be a mystery. And I guess like having the name Agatha Christie, like, you know, Agatha Christie, if you don't know, is very popular, renowned, known for her mysteries and stuff like that. So if you picked up this book thinking that, oh, because it's Agatha Christie, she's gonna be writing a mystery, then like maybe, yeah, you were disappointed in the fact that you couldn't figure it out until the end. Even the explanation for who the killer is and how the killer did the things that they did, like their methods and stuff like that, was kind of left field, because I was like, oh, how is that possible? How is that feasible? It just feels like it's like you would have to be very manipulative, very calculative in order to be able to even execute all of the things that you had planned perfectly. How did you do that? The thing is, the killer themselves doesn't actually run away scot-free, because they end up, spoiler, they end up dying on the island. So it's like nobody got out alive, not even the killer. And it's just one of those things where it's like, what in the world did I just read? How very Gone Girl of you. However, if you are one of those people that like to read about, I don't know, like if you like Lord of the Flies type beat, like where like there's like this group of people, they're trying to survive and they end up turning on each other and becoming like the ugliest that they can be because of the way that everybody's just trying to look out for themselves and nobody can trust anybody. If you like those type of stories, then like this is the book for you. I really liked the way that the, again, atmosphere, the tension was set up very well. The characters themselves were really like modeled well, I feel like, this time around, because of the fact that this time around, I don't mean like Agatha Christie is not good at modeling her characters. I just mean when it comes to these type of concepts of like psychological mystery, psychological thrillers, oftentimes we don't really get to connect with the characters themselves, and instead we're pushed by the concepts, the themes within the narrative to care about these characters. But actually the characters themselves had their own characters, had their own natures, their own personalities that made them stand apart and stand alone from each other. And so whenever something happened to one character, you're just like, oh my gosh, him? And so it's just so interesting. And especially towards the end, for people who have read the book, y'all need to talk with me. Y'all need to talk with me, privately message me or something like that about the end of this book. Because towards the end, the two survivors in this book, the top three, I guess, the top three contestants that ended up surviving for a bit before they were killed off as well. Everything that happened, that went down, it was so intense. And it was like perfect, I feel like, for like the situation and for the overall message, the theme that this book was trying to give. And I don't think it was trying to give like a message in a way that's like, oh, kill 10 people or something like that, but like just the way that your sins will catch up to you type of beat, and that like you can't hide forever in that way. And I feel like that's so ominous. I love ominous messages like that. Like, let me know what y'all thought if y'all have read this book, because I need to talk to more people about it, and I need to talk to people about it who understood it the way I understood it, rather than arguing that it's not a mystery. It's not a mystery, but it's really well done as like a book and like as a narrative, and the way that like the entire time your tension, like the tension of it just keeps building. There was never a lag in any part of the book. It just kept building and building and building until like the very end, when everything just kind of like peak destruction, peak devolvement of humanity. We need to have more stories like that. Honestly, we need to talk more about the hysteria of humanity, the way that like we like to think of ourselves as very progressive. We like to think of ourselves as very much put together. Nothing like that would ever happen to us. We would never have these thoughts and stuff like that. But actually, they're closer than they may appear. For the full experience of like how I experienced this book, I suggest you read this book start in the evening and then work your way into the night. For me personally, I didn't actually stop when I first read this book. Like, I opened the page and I said to myself, like, I'm gonna finish, what, 2 chapters and I'm gonna be done. And then I ended up reading the whole book and staying up until 2 a.m. or something like that. I never stopped, not once. And it's because, again, the tension also builds in a way that feels nonstop. It wasn't very, like, incremental, but, like, it was more, like, accelerating. It felt like things were moving again, and things are moving even here now. And, like, I can't stop now. And so I recommend reading this book in the night. And prepare yourself, because you'll be reading it nonstop, unless, I mean, like, that's not a requirement, but you should be able to read it nonstop. The book, I feel like the narrative of it works best that way, just like a full binge of bad vibes. Maybe you read it when you're the only one in the living room at night, late at night, and to the early morning, while a playlist is playing in the corner while you're reading, so that you can really get the vibe of everything, the unsettlement of everything, the unnaturalness of everything. It's not exactly a horror per se, I don't think, like, in the traditional sense of horror, but it felt horrific. It felt very much like terror. There you go. Like, we need to make up another genre name or something. Like, it's not horror, but it's terror, where you feel the fear being invoked upon you and stuff like that. And it's more of an internal fear rather than something external coming at you. Because at the same time, you're in your head a lot for a lot of these other factors. Although, like, the killer themselves is an external factor, but, like, at the same time, because of the way that you're isolated, you're oftentimes just in your head and you're just thinking and trying to cope with everything, but being unsuccessful at it. So I think we should make up a new genre called terror, and we should put this book in terror. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this book. That's all I have to say about today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. And for people who have read this book, let me know what you thought about it. Let me know how you felt, what your thoughts were. Was I off the mark? Did you guys feel the same way? Did you not? And yeah, that's about it. Bye!